Hallo Leute, ich bin Katja und ihr seht Deutsch für euch. So, since it's Valentine's Day next Saturday, I figured I might as well mix language with a little trivia lesson today. Valentine's Day, Valentinstag, is about the same here as I perceive it to be in the US. It's mostly, a day for the greeting card and chocolate industry with a little bit of a sweet thought behind it, and it's basically up to you whether you want to, put meaning into it or you don't. But what I want to talk about today is pretty interesting detached from that too. Because today we're going to take a closer look at our two ways of saying I love you in German. That's right, two. Anybody still want to say that German isn't romantic? Thought so. So the phrase that is probably much more well known internationally is ich liebe dich. You've probably encountered it before, although it's pretty likely that you never heard the right pronunciation. Ich liebe dich. This phrase we use almost exclusively for romantic scenarios. There are, of course, instances in which it's used a bit more loosely, like, I don't know, if your friend brings you the perfect snack after an intense cramming session or something. But let's leave those out of the picture for now. Because doing that, we're left with ich liebe dich as the aforementioned confession of romantic love. So, meaning you say this to your lover or just in general your partner. It's a pretty big deal, Because beyond the more, teenager experimental phases of love or puppy love or whatever you want to call it, you won't, take this out until the feelings have risen pretty high. Now I know that's pretty much how English speakers feel about I love you connected to the romantic relationships. But you know how you also say I love you when, you're just telling somebody that you love them without being in love with them? That's what makes ich liebe dich ever so slightly more loaded with seriousness because of our second way of saying it. That being, ich hab dich lieb. Ich hab dich lieb. Or put less colloquially, ich habe dich lieb. Ich habe dich lieb. Bit more difficult to translate because the scenarios in which it is used, again, in English, also just trigger I love you because you don't really make a difference or you don't have a second idiomized phrase to say this. Taking it a bit more literally for a second, it means something like you're dear to me, I hold you dear. Or, if you translate it completely literally, it would be, I have you, dear, sweet, loved. So, that kind of already gives us an idea where we're going, I think. But its usage is a bit more complicated than that of ich liebe dich, or at least a bit more complex to explain if you don't have that dichotomy. The most important distinction that most Germans will probably instantly jump to if you ask them about this is that ich hab dich lieb is used for friends and family mostly. And that's the core of it, because ich hab dich lieb implies a love that is characterized by familiarity, by respect, and just, a general sweetness. And there's, you don't think of romance and passion when you hear or say it. It can also be shortened to just hab dich lieb, so without the ich, which, is a bit more colloquial, or, depending on the context, could also be a little more timid. And this is the phrase that is most often used among friends. It's also often shortened to HDL, HDL, hab dich lieb, which is kind of like, the exchange between teenagers in English, love ya, or just LU. That's, the acronym that's the equal to that. All of this, however, is not to say that you cannot say this to your partner. This is where opinions kind of drift apart, I feel, because there are Germans who will feel kind of weird about saying this to your partner because, they might feel like it's too detached or it's not the right kind of relationship and that a romantic relationship should have ich liebe dich reserved for it. But there's plenty of us who use both. What's nice about it is that you can use it to tell your partner that you like them and you're in love with them without using the big L word. I've personally found that it comes in pretty handy in the early stages of a relationship where you don't want to throw the big word love out there yet because it's just too early to tell, but you still want to let the other person know that they already have a special place in your heart and, that you like them. But that might just be me. I really like the implications that come with using both phrases with the same person because then they kind of, communicate different different levels of your relationship with them. To me, ich liebe dich is for the passion and romance, and even though it might sound corny, the sharing your soul part of a committed relationship, while ich hab dich lieb is more about commitment and familiarity and respect and even actually that platonic part, you know, being friends and being together beyond infatuation. But again, aspects or even all of that might just be my personal feelings. So to my German watchers, I would love to hear what you think about that. Was sagt ihr zu wem? Sagt ihr, ich hab dich lieb auch zu eurem Partner, und wenn ihr es nicht macht, könntet ihr euch das vorstellen oder findet ihr das irgendwie komisch? Und generell, was verbindet ihr einfach mit diesen beiden Sätzen? And to everybody else, what do you think about this distinction? Do you feel it's necessary or just nice, or are you fine with just having one option and, you know, are just angry about another complicated issue in the German language? Or does your native language even make a similar distinction too? And whether you have someone to share it with this year or not, I wish you all a happy Valentine's Day, and if you don't believe in this giving meaning to that day, I wish you just an awesome Saturday regardless. And yeah, sagt jemandem, dass ihr ihn liebt oder lieb habt. And that's it for today. Your random word of the week is das Headset und der Controller. So gamers learning German have it a bit easier than the rest of you. Although you can also call this der Drücker, literally the presser. Practical as always. Bis nächste Woche. Tschüss! Mua.